Welcome to week 7 of our winter session of Ironmen that we've entitled Small is the New Big. Tonight we're going to talk about something that none of us ever think about. Remember that great song that somebody made? I don't remember who it was. But I went, money, 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 money. Well, tonight we're going to talk about money. And we're going to talk about some of the small habits that we've developed and where we learned them and how they lead to big outcomes in our life, good or bad, whether it's significant amount of resource or accumulated debt. And what are the scriptures, what did Jesus have to say about this daily thing we all deal with called money? Tonight I want to move to another area of life that we don't think that much about, but I just want to know what emotions surface in you when you just hear me say the word money. Money. Bills. I mean, what do you have any emotions that just literally, feelings emerge? Anybody? Just, it's no right or wrong. Yeah, Will?
Anxiety is if there's not enough. Like I haven't planned well enough.
Anxiety. Like you haven't planned well enough, that you may not have enough. So there's a deficit concern thing. Yeah. How about anybody else? Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Love of.
Love of it.
Be careful.
Yeah. And sometimes, anxiety about it can create a love for it, right? Yeah, Nick?
I just want to say that when you don't have it, you have the anxiety. But when you get to a point later in life, it becomes an anxiety too.
Yeah.
With regards to what you have enough.
So a lot of times when you don't have it, you can have a love for it, so to speak, right? And you get older, there's an anxiety. Do I have enough to take care of me when I'm at a point where maybe I'm not going to work 40 hours a week or whatever? And this thing can churn a little bit, can it? Keep going with this a little bit, just a couple more, and then I'm going to ask you to talk more about. Oh yeah, thank you, Bob. What's that?
Brings depression. Anxiety.
Anxiety. Depression? Yeah, it brings depression. Wow. And Bob, how old are you, Bob?
88.
88. Isn't this great? That's why I asked him, because I knew. Bob comes every week. And he's lived long enough, and he's dealt with enough money to make it so. He says sometimes it can make you feel depressed, right? Do you ever feel like it controls you a little bit? You ever worry about it? I mean, I know I've been concerned about it. And I don't know, this can be for a million reasons. It can be because of status. It could be because of what we equate it with happiness. We equate it with maybe the good life, whatever it may be. I don't know what it may be for you, but here's what I know. This thing can have an awful lot of power over us if we don't understand it. More power than it needs to. And I would say this, how we treat it and what we do with it in our habits is massive. So for table talk, what I'd like you to give some thought to is this. What have been some of your most formative moments when it comes to money? And what really is your general attitude toward it? Are you kind of a penny pincher, or you just kind of let it rip, spend whatever you want? Does it matter? Are you a giver, a saver? Or do you really even think about it? Do you treat money as something that's yours or not? Give some thought to these kind of things. And what are some passages in Scripture that speak to money and our treasures? Consider that time as you get together around your tables. Enjoy this time. I want to read you something from 1 Timothy verse 6, because it's easy, isn't it, to think about how many things we can get talked into needing that we really don't need. Like, I remember a guy telling me, you really got to buy a house. You got to own a house. I go like, why? Like, where does it say that? I mean, what it says is, I need a place to live. It doesn't say I have to buy something. Like, you have to be able to afford that. I can't afford it right now. If I could, it might make more sense for me to buy and be able to put equity into a home as opposed to, just float it away and rent. I get all that wisdom, but I can't. But let me just read you something real quick. This is from 1 Timothy chapter 6. And at verse 6, it says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. I just want to, Godliness with contentment is great gain. That word contentment is a powerful word. And it is amazing how content you can be until somebody else lets you know you shouldn't be content with what you have, because advertising literally lives off the reality of trying to manufacture a need in us that we may or may not have. And it may take a legitimate need and make it more than it is. So again, I'm not bashing advertising. What I'm saying is it's worth asking what's being communicated, and why am I trusting I need something completely outside of myself to bring the joy that really comes from within. So he goes, for we brought nothing into the world, and we take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money, it doesn't say money, does it? It says money isn't, the love of money is the root of all evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So let's go over one more time. Let's look at verse 17. This is really important, because I think some people can read that and kind of bash people of wealth. I think that's crazy. I think God is massively wealthy when you think of it, right? He didn't create a bland world. He didn't create one color, one taste, flat. It's massively diverse and beautiful. He goes on to say, command those who are rich in this present world to just not to be arrogant or to put their hope in the wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything, get this, for our enjoyment. I love that. Command them to do good and to be rich in good deeds and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they'll lay up treasure for themselves in heaven and make a firm foundation for the age to come. And that may hold on to that which is life and truly life indeed. Let me just give you a couple quick little overarching things in light of this. Number one is this. When it comes to money, you think about this. It's Psalm 24:1 or Genesis 1 is that everything we have ultimately comes from whose hand? Who owns it all? God does. We all say that, but we act like it's ours. You know what I mean? Like it's my stuff. You know, like I bought a home 20 years ago that I'm in. It's really interesting. From the day we bought it, Betsy and I disciplined ourselves at that point in time. Is that number one, we're not going to buy this house if we have to lower our giving. Number two, we're not going to buy the house if we're going to be enslaved to the house. This thing really can't be changed in our lifestyle a whole lot. So it's got to work for it to happen. And it's God's house. Like it's really His. We got to take care of what's His, to steward this thing. It has been so helpful how this has helped us live in our means. But when you start out with something that all we have is from the Lord's, Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who dwell in it, including our life is the Lord's, even if people don't know it. That's why when people come to faith, they're doing the most natural thing in the world. They're coming home to the truest thing about them. So it really helps me when I feel like, well, if God owns it all, then what it means is I'm really a steward of somebody else's stuff. It's not my stuff. There's a guy that did this once with his kids, and he was teaching them this, and he gave them a $100 bill. He goes, here, I want to give you $100. He gave him $100. He goes, you can do whatever you want with it, but I want you to come back and tell me how you spent my money. You can buy whatever you want with it, but I want you to come back and tell me how you spent my money. He was doing this with his son. And I often wonder sometimes, you know, when you get a paycheck or I get a paycheck, we think it's mine, instead of saying, wow, Lord, you gave me resource. Now the question is, you've been bountiful. What do I do with the resource you gave me? It's a different way to think, isn't it? When you're handling my money, then I kind of do what I want. When I think that it's somebody else's resource, then I'm thinking differently about the fact that I'm going to answer to someone else for what I do with their resource and how I handle it and how I think about it. Does this make sense? This is really good. Here's the third one. I think that giving and generosity and not greed and a scarcity mentality should mark our lives at every turn. This is interesting. Here's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. You guys all know this verse. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding, right? In all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your paths straight. Next verse says this. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, right? And shun evil. For this will add health to your body and nourishment to your bones. And then it says this. Honor the Lord from your wealth and from the first fruits of all your labor. Not the last fruit, the first fruits. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. You know, it was really interesting. This is about giving. You know, Luke 6:38 says this. Real quick. Luke 6:38. Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It'll be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it'll be measured to you. Or the measure you give is the measure you get. This is really interesting. People often say with the tithe, like, do you really have the tithe? What's the point of the tithe? The tithe is God's. Let me ask you, does God tithe in the Old Testament? You think how much is a tithe? Cents for what? 10%. If you included what the nation of Israel gave out of their harvests, out of first fruits, and just offerings, it was way more than 10%. It was up into that 30% bracket. But here's the deal. Whose was it? God's. Now, God doesn't need it, right? So why do you think God would ask us to give? I think exactly right. It's the love of money. Now, here's the deal. If you ask me to give you a penny on a dime, that's not much. A dime on a dollar is not even that much. A dollar on 10 isn't all that much. 10 on 100, I'm starting to think about it a little bit if I'm in high school. 100 on 1,000, 1,000 on 10, 10 on 100, it's a different ballgame, right? Because it manages your life. And it also helps you begin to think about how you live. When you get this area right first, it manages everything else. So, and it's not legalism. I just think when people say, I think that's just a place you'd want to start to get to. I would like to give, you know, for Betsy and I, when we first got married, we couldn't give 10%. I literally couldn't do it. The math just did not work. I mean, I didn't even get paid some months. There's months Rick knows it on Young Life stuff. I mean, there was months I got $400 and we had to live off it and our rent was half. And I had a car loan payment. I had, two college loan payments and we had to eat it literally. But here's what we didn't decide. That we're not going to not give. We're going to give. That was not the option. It didn't matter. It was $5, $10, 20. We were giving and we gave consistently. It wasn't if we had it. We did it first. And then we said, God, as you enable us, we'll give more. We'll up it. Now we're at a point where we're able to do significantly more than 10%. I have no right to live in the house I live in. None. We just bought a car Friday. It's crazy. I mean, there's wisdom in the scriptures is all I'm saying. And it isn't like I'm making $500,000 a year. I'm not. It's little lessons over time make a huge difference. And I would say this, giving was one of the greatest things. It will help you get your house in order because it reorders your priorities, as Steve is saying. So, you know, again, the scriptures are clear. It's not money. We make money the bad guy. Money's not the bad guy. Money can do good things. But what is money really? What is money? I mean, what is it? It's simply a tool. It's just a means of exchange. It's the same paper for a $100 bill as a $1 bill. We just put a different figure on it. Same ink, same size, just different number. And so we've got to understand it's the love of this thing and what it represents that creates tension. But it doesn't make it bad. We end up letting it do bad things because we get our hearts misdirected in it, and we'll see that in just a little bit. Here's another thing. I think it's really okay to have nice and beautiful things. I just think you need to ask hard questions before you purchase. Here's the deal. The buyer always has the last say, not the seller. Everything's negotiable if you're willing to walk. Like, I got exactly the price I wanted for the car I bought. I knew what I was putting down because I have a car account. I put X amount in a car account every single month. Because I'm going to have a car payment probably until I die. And if I pay it all, I put it in an account, I have a car payment. Every month I have a car payment. And so I went in and we dickered and dackered and did our thing, but I knew exactly what I wanted to pay. I was going to get the deal I wanted or I was going to walk. And I got the deal I wanted. But again, it's okay. It's the nicest car we've ever had. I'm not driving it. My wife is. I will probably hardly ever drive the car. I got the one with 150,000 miles on it now. All I'm saying to you is, it's okay. We have this warped sense sometimes to be believers that have nice things is bad. I think that's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Here's the last one. There is wisdom when it comes to money. And when you align yourself, coming up, Jasper, it really helps. And so let me just say this about money. You can't do millions of things with money. You can only do a few. And so, I think one thing, you can give it, right? You give it away, you live on it. Is that correct? You get that? And then you save it. And you really only save it for two reasons. So you can eventually give it, or you can live on it. It just repeats itself. You put it away, you let it, your retirement, your 401k, why do you have that? Well, you have that so you can actually live. And when you die, what are you going to do with it? You're going to... And it's really cool. If you can kind of learn some lessons, somebody taught me this early on. Come on up, Josh, you can get this. If you can start here and work towards this, where you can learn to think about trying to really learn to practice to give 10%. And you can give more than that. I'm saying if you start doing this over time, this will go up, I promise you. But if you can learn to give 10 and try to start saving 10 over a long period of time and live on 80, some of you guys, you're way out of whack because you don't know what you spend. I'm telling you, you don't know what you spend. If you tracked your money and did your budget, Jasper will help with this. Because here's why I wanted Jasper to come up. His financial house, and he'll tell you about this, wasn't always in order. And he now, for the last 5 years, has been teaching this thing called Financial Peace here at Grace. And it really is a tool that we've utilized here from Dave Ramsey, and people have used it from different stretches. Dave's pretty tight on what he does, but I'm telling you, hundreds of people here at Grace have gone through this, and it has brought so much joy in the Lord and relief in their giving and how they think about money, because nobody ever taught them. They just kind of learned through the school of Knox, and what they learned. See, if you do the small, wrong, bad habits over time, what do you end up with? Big bad habits. Like, you wouldn't believe the amount of debt that just stops people because you've learned to live, that you just live off debt. Like, really? The scriptures would say that's being a fool. Wrong kind of debt. I don't mean debt that you have money to pay for, but there is consumer debt that you bought something, you have no idea how we're paying for it. People do this all the time. So, Jasper, why don't you give just a little feedback on maybe a little bit of your own story, just a little bit of your own history.
So, first of all, I want to tell you that I wish I went to the same military that Bob did, because when I was in the Navy, I didn't make a lot of money. So I didn't really know. I mean, I was enlisted, and this was in the 80s, 1987 when I went in. So I didn't really have a lot of money with that, but let me just move forward to working and understanding money. So my first job was in the car business, where I was selling cars, and then I became the finance manager. But I was taught by the industry how to sell them, how to sell the money, right? All that stuff. So I was taught by the company how to do that, right? So who was making the profit on that? The company, right? But they sold me on the ideas, and I sold the people, right? Then I moved into the mortgage business, and I did the same thing. I learned all these different programs. I could tell you them sideways, backwards. And then I started following advice that I was sold by them, and then I would do the same advice I would give to other people. And it put me in so much financial problems that we were almost $1 million in debt at one time. Yeah. Kind of crazy with businesses and things that didn't work out the way we thought they would. But one thing that happened to me...
Say that figure one more time.
What's that?
Say that figure one more time.
Yeah, so
I've never heard you say that. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, there was a time. So when you look at, there was times when there was debt. If you look at over the period of time, how much it actually was.
Yeah.
Not at any one given time, but there's the misconception that I had. So the theys out there really teach you what is beneficial for the company. Now, if this is your industry, I'm not picking on that, right? I'm just saying that I can tell you through just my walk with this is that I had challenges with it, right? One of the things actually, Will, almost identical to that situation, but I didn't get out of it with a short sale. What happened is I wound up losing the house and going bankrupt. And had to look at my wife. You guys might have heard me say that in my testimony of this, right? So then I thought, well, hey, I got to rebuild this. What did I do? I started listening to the theys, right? So the first thing I did is that I've got to go get more debt to put up my, what's that score called? Your what? Credit score, you guys heard of FICO, right? It's called a credit score, but that's really a misnomer. It's really a relationship to debt, right? Now, if you look here in the Bible, it's not going to say that that's a sin, but it will say that you're foolish, right? If you look up Proverbs 22:7, it says that the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. That one resonates with me all the time. And the other one is Proverbs 14:7. I've been saying this one for probably 20 years, is that stay away from the foolish man, for you'll not find knowledge on his lips. And what I learned is that I was that foolish man that really had challenges with it. So I had to learn the right way. And when I found financial peace, we were kind of at the bottom. You know, my wife and I were not talking about money well. You know, I don't know if you can relate to that. But most of my classes, so over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of different classes, probably 3 or 4 a year. And in that, we have comments, you know, that people have struggles with. And one of them is
Yeah, what are some of the roadblocks that you really feel like the major, like, booms that you keep reoccurring?
How about this? How about credit cards? Okay? How many people have heard that you need a credit card for what? For an emergency, right? Right? So one of the things that we teach in the financial class, the first thing that you do is you save $1,000, right? A lot of people are like, well, how do you do that? I mean, you sell some of the stuff that you have that you don't really need, right? So one of the things that we talk about is getting organized, right? By just finding out where you are, right? Because the things you have to know where you are and where you want to go. Does that make sense? And start this thing. So you have credit cards are one of the biggest problems. But what we found in the classes like that, it's really people starting out with student loans. That tends to be, I'll tell you, if I could do anything in my life.
At least today, right? Yeah.
What's that?
Today, for I think the last
Today.
15 years, yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Is that I think that it's a crime, actually. I think that we should really be working on that to where, you know, colleges, you know, shouldn't charge what they do, you know, and kids being able to get into that deep debt. A lot of times, especially think about teachers, for example, right? How much does it cost? Any teachers go through school? Give me a number. How much does it cost for school?
I mean, I didn't pay for a lot of it, but I went to, the college I went to to community college for 2 years. The college I went to was like $30,000 a year.
Okay, 3,000. Good. Go ahead.
I work at a school, we charge $30,000
$30,000 a year.
a year.
Right, okay. Most colleges, like teachers that go through this, go through the classes like this, their debts are up to like $100,000 with half their master's degree and special, you know, once they get into their PhD sides. But their income, once they go into the job field, doesn't even relate to, imagine the math of what you have to do to pay that back. You follow me? You know, so it's a challenge like that. Any more direct questions with that?
Well, no, just specifically, what are the major, when you think, you're saying debt is a major issue for people, but how have you helped people kind of, okay, we're going to address the issue of I've got this, you know, I'm really thirsty, but I've got 2 ounces to drink out of a 12-ounce cup and it's pretty empty. So where do I start? I get frustrated, I got to eat, so then I go get another credit card. And now I'm living one credit card to the next, Like, what would be some 2 or 3 practical things that you would say from the scriptures in life that you would learn that would fit in the wisdom bucket to help you guys really think about, if I were to make some changes, what would that look like?
Yeah, I think that the, first of all, of course, I would say go to the class, right? Because I went to the class, the first time I sat in the back of the room, and I thought I knew everything. I mean, I went through all the VEG classes, right? All the different vocations I was in. That's what I did as a living. So I thought I knew it. I sat in the back of the room and I disagreed with a lot of it, you know, and then, you know, there's a couple things that made sense. I went back to the class and we started applying some things. And then it started working for my wife and I. We started talking together. Her and I actually started talking well about money and we came together as a family. And then our daughter saw us do that. And then she got involved. You know, there's nothing better than to see your child actually understand how money works the right way. And you ask her, you know, what are 3 things you can do with money? And she'll say that you save it, you spend it, and you give it.
Yeah.
You know, which is great. So I think the first thing you got to do is get organized. You got to get a budget, right? Don't think of it like a tourniquet, right? You got to get a budget. What you want to know where you are. right? You want to just write down what you spend your money on because it'll actually tell you where your values are, right? Things will just come up that you won't know. For example, one of them was coffee, right? Who's a Starbucks person here? Anybody?
Me.
Don't lie.
I am.
Starbucks, right? What's your average Starbucks for?
I just spent $2.07 for a tall dark.
Yeah, but that's a regular coffee, right?
That's all I get.
And then the other ones, right? $5, whatever. Right, and how many of those you have a day?
I don't have food for drinks.
If you're on a farm, it's a buck a cup, any size.
So you can get into all this, but if you actually budget what you spend your money on and take an honest look at that, it'll uncover what you're doing. Now let's say that you have debt. This is one of the things we're talking about. So we actually have something we call the baby steps. And when you do your debt, we actually talk about what's called a debt snowball. Right? You know, if you take a snowball, you start it out, and you roll it a little bit, it's going to pick up snow as you go downhill, right? So one of the things that we do is we take the debt, right, and you start out with your smallest balance, right? And then you work it smallest to largest, you start paying off this one, and then it snowballs into the next.
Yeah, when you pay off the smallest credit card, you don't just say, oh, I got $50 a month more. No, no, no. To spend, you put it towards the next debt, the next debt, the next debt, the next debt. Good.
It compounds.
Compounds. See, it's a small thing, but it's really, this ain't sexy. Like if you're in financial deep weeds and it took you years to get in it, you probably aren't going to get out of it in a year. But imagine the peace if you've identified and you have a plan that you're working and it's slowly going down. It was really good for me, because somebody taught me this, to be able to put a massive amount of money down on a car that I bought pretty relatively new to you. It was used, but pretty new. And already we'd attack this. Because here's the thing, guys, what do you want? This is all tied to desire. This is why contentment is huge. It isn't so much about what you have, it's what you do with what you have. And we end up in bad places, I think, as Jasper's saying, because we don't really know where our money's going. It'd be interesting for a month to track pretty close to what you spend. Every time you're dropping a buck, write down what it is. What's it for? Where'd it go? And take a look at it at the end of the month. It is eye-opening. Because you only got so much coming in the pipe, right? This is what God has said, I'm giving you, Matt, to manage. What are you going to do if I gave it to you to manage? You can do crazy stuff with it, you can do some really good stuff. And then when you begin to see where it's going, like we were doing our budget once, we had little kids, it's like, where is all our money going? Like, and then we realized, oh my gosh, it's birthday parties at one stage. We were like, birthday parties and haircuts and stuff we never even had in our budget or never even thought about it. We were dropping like, you know, it could be $30 some months, $50 other months. And when you're not making a ton, that's a lot of money. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
software subscription. Watch out for those.
yeah.
Right? Those are new now, right? I mean, you don't own it anymore, right? They're just going to kind of nibble down you that stuff. But this is really on point. Most of what you said, though, is tied into financial peace, but really it's the organizing. One of the things we do. Anybody in here take financial peace with me? Look at that. Am I on point with this? Right?
Yeah.
Right? I know it's always been great, right? It really has changed things in us, I do believe. A tip is every dollar. There's an app, right, to make it very simple for you. It's free, right? But what it does is it gets you organized. So with that, you actually take a receipt. Just make sure that you remember that. Every time you buy something, say, they're going to ask you, do you want the receipt? Say, yes, I want the receipt. Put it in your back pocket, you know, and then actually put it into the app. Because what will happen is that you'll learn. And the app will help you track it month to month. But what comes out of that is just small things you never knew. And then once your money's in order, it is amazing, because now it's been years that we've been doing this. And things have happened to us. You know, we actually decided when we started the class not to buy a house. You know, I'm a veteran. I could have done it 100% financing. And back in the, you know, because I was taught as a mortgage guy, why waste your money on renting, right? I'm renting, right? Love it, right? I call them up. When something goes wrong, they come in and they fix it. I don't have to worry about the payment or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But I also know, people go, what about wasting the money? Is that I'm tracking how much I'm spending in rent, so that when I do buy the house, there's my negotiation amount. Because I'm going to say, well, now I'm negotiating the amount that I'm paying rent.
Yeah.
So I'm not losing.
Yeah. let me stop there. Any questions? We're going to have a few more comments here, but any other thoughts, questions on any of this? Does this make sense? Here's why we're talking about this. This is an area that's like a ball and chain to people. I mean, literally, it was interesting. So Friday I go I buy this car, and the guy goes, we got to run your credit score. I go, okay, great. So I take their thing, they come back, and he goes, it was kind of crazy. He goes, yeah, you're good, and you want to put down how much? I go, this amount. He goes, I want to tell you, nobody comes in here and does this. Nobody. We literally have people come in here, they have $500 to put down on a new car. They want a new car for $500, and they want $300 a month payments. And I look at them like, it's impossible, and they get mad at me when I can't give them that deal. Because these people have no idea, and their credit's like down in the 500 someplace. Here's the deal. You make decisions. Yes, here's all I'm saying. Financial health is no different than physical health. It's based on decisions made over time with a view of God's stuff. Does that make sense? And it goes somewhere. This is why, what's the desire? So one of the greatest things that ever happened in my marriage is when Betsy and I got married, we had no money. Some of you ever feel that? You're like, no, oh man, those are the days. I'd say those weren't the days. Those were the days. I don't really want to go back to those days, but I tell you, what I learned in those days is invaluable. It forced us to track what we did. We got on an envelope system that I know Ramsey teaches. I didn't even know about Dave Ramsey. But to this day, at the beginning of the month, tomorrow night or next night, I will sit down and write a check to cash. Out of that cash will come gas money for the month. I mean, I'm old school. You guys probably use your card. We get like $20 bills and we put it in the gas envelope. Like today on the way here, went up, got a 20. On my way here, $20 of gas. And I have entertainment and we have miscellaneous. Miscellaneous, what's that? Betsy gets her nails done, because she will. Hair, yep. Haircut for me, yep. Birthday present, yep. We've learned through tracking how much probably needs to go to those envelopes. We, for entertainment, we have a budget of what we spend every month. We got money, let's just spend it. No, because we have to decide. Like some months we might want to say, we want to go out again, but we already dropped all our money for the month. Okay, well, there's some more left in miscellaneous. We want to do that? Or we got a little extra, we have a little more margin, because do we want to spend it? We might say, no, let's save, because we can put that extra 50 towards vacation this summer, because we're going to go on vacation. Do you see how you just learn to think in other ways? And then we go on vacation. I'm not using a credit card. We're not charging it. If we don't have it, we ain't going for the trip. Like it's either in the bank, and we charge it knowing when the bill comes in, I'm just getting the points off the credit card so I can fly free someplace. But that bill, they don't like me. I pay it off every single month. And I couldn't before, and it scared me. We got a bill once. I thought, when I started adding up what it would pay. But if you don't know what you have coming, tracking where your money goes, you know your budget. Like you have a certain amount that you spend every month, where you live, electric, right? We go down the list. You can get a list from people. Some of them might apply to you, some may not, but you have your list. But there are things on there people don't even think about. And so here's one thing, Betsy and I, we used to get in fights over this. My friend goes, hey dude, you are the tightest, you're like a sphincter. You know what I mean? Like you need to lighten up, dude.
I know him for about 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation once. I was in a group like this, there's 3 or 4 of us, and it was about a couch that your wife wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
And Betsy goes, so we turned out, my friend told me this, we ended up buying a couch because we had the money, but he goes, why don't you guys each take an allowance? I go like, oh my gosh, I never even heard of that. He goes, really? He goes, yeah, why don't you just have Betsy get a certain amount of money every month, and you get a certain amount, and she can do whatever she wants with hers, and you can do whatever you want with hers, but it's in our budget. It doesn't replace giving, it's part of the 80%. So our allowance has to fit that. And she wants to save hers up for a few months and do whatever she wants, she can do whatever. If she spends it, I don't even ask about it, and nor does she ask about mine. And so we each get a certain amount. Hers happens to be more than mine, which is fine. But,
Happy wife.
exactly. So, but these things are really helpful because we really get in trouble. What are some of the, just tell us a couple good stories real quickly. Can you think of a couple where people have over time said, wait a minute, we've got to take responsibility, to take dominion. Mm-hmm. This is about taking dominion. Do you guys remember that word? God gave us a responsibility to manage and take care of His stuff. When we give it up, chaos comes in. Genesis chapter 3. When we take it back, this is why people have chaos in this area, for the most part. They give up dominion. And sometimes you don't even know. We got a guy, Bernie Kaplan. Bernie probably wouldn't mind me saying this real quickly. He's taught his kids money with basically every month. He gives them the money that he would probably have spent on them, and they have to pay him back. Like, they literally write a check for rent. And clothing, they have to make a budget for it. And if he doesn't pay them on time, eventually he takes the door off their room. He says, like, you didn't pay your rent. Now, here's what, he gave them the money, but they're having to manage it. His daughter, graduating from high school, has also learned to save. She's graduating with, I think, like thousands of dollars in her bank account. Like almost 10. Just by using her dad's money and managing it, because he's taught them how to use their money. They have to write him a check, so they've learned to write checks. Nobody ever did that with me. I'm like, man, Bernie, why didn't I know you when I was doing that with my kids? They would have been miserable, but probably happy. But these little things, but still, you're still give, live, save. A lot of us don't give, and we don't save, and we spend it all here. Or we save a little teeny amount and give a teeny bit and spend most of it here. When you begin to right size this and this, you begin to live differently here. The amount of freedom is amazing. That's all I'm telling you. This is just God's wisdom. So, give us a story of somebody that maybe, again, was out of dominion, took dominion back, and began to experience something.
Yeah, well,
because I could tell a few, but you
yeah,
can.
This is a good story. So I always want to remind me, because I was a car guy. So I was in the car business, and I loved cars. The great thing is that while I worked there, I got to drive cars back in the day, like anything I really wanted. I got to drive cars that I definitely couldn't afford, unless it was a payment. But I heard this story actually in the financial peace class, and this guy was investing, and his investing was going pretty good. And he says, well, you know what, I really made this number, so I'm going to go buy this car that I always wanted. It was a Mercedes, it was really nice, and it was, at the time, it was like $40,000 new. He's like, man, I can't wait to go do that. And he's all excited about it. He goes, he buys the car, strokes the check. Wouldn't that be cool? The check to do that, right? And then he gets the car, brings it home, these guys showing it off to his friends, he's all excited about this. And then the remorse sets in. He starts thinking about it, because he's an investment guy, right? And he goes, man, I wonder. Starts running some numbers, right? And he's like, no, I can't do this. Takes the car back, right? Takes the car back, right? Then he goes and buys a $10,000 used car, right? And drives that. Takes $30,000, right, and invests it for 10 years.
Wow.
Right? And he's driving, he's doing well. He's still an investment guy. So 10 years later, he's driving his car. He's up at a light, right? And he stops and he sees this other car come up. And it's the same car he was going to buy. Right now, he's got a nice car, and that car's up, and he rolls his window down. He's like, hey, man, buddy, how much is that car? He goes, I was going to buy one of those. Because, funny thing is, I just bought this car. He goes, you did? How much you paid? $4,000. Right? And he's like, wow, in 10 years, the car had kind of depreciated like that. And then he went back and looked in the file of this account that he had invested. $300,000 that he had earned over that time for compound interest.
Wow.
And I love playing with the calculators to see how that math kind of works out like that. And it's true. I've seen that so many different times. And even in our own homes, so it works out really well.
We have a couple guys who've done this. Aaron Ruhr is a great friend. Aaron teaches a class. His house is paid off. He's done. We had one guy, John Tompkins, who does this. John was an investment guy. John would tell you, he had thousands. He goes, I figured if I could just, why rent something? I'd just buy it. And he goes, it was just crazy. And then he realized he goes, I'm making this money and I'm trapped. And so he got exposed to this, and now his house is paid off. Things are done. He's got money in the bank. Because you just do this thing, you have different capacities. You know, it's really fun when you get some things in order, because then you can even say, like for Betsy and I, if we want to go out, if we want to go out sometimes, like, hey, let's just not go to that restaurant. Let's go to a really nice one, because we can. And it's really fun to go to a nice dinner every now and then and spend more than $30. You know, like, let's go. Why? Because we can. And I think God's pleased. And, we've done stuff. Like this weekend, real quickly, thank you, Jasper. Hold on just one more sec. But I didn't anticipate this, but I was doing some other stuff on the side, and these guys hand me a check for doing it. I go, there was no deal to do this. I'm happy to do it. It's part of what I get to do. They go, we know, we want to give you this. It was unexpected. So here's what happens with that. Instantly, money comes off the top, and it goes in my top drawer at my house. I'm just waiting for an extra opportunity to give some money away for somebody. I know I'm going to get a chance. Because I did 2 weeks ago. A good friend of mine didn't have money. His furnace blew up. Just totally blew up. He didn't have money. It cost $1,200. You know what I did? I called 5 guys, and I got to be one of them to help pay for that furnace. It was awesome. He totally unexpected. He didn't have it. He had to put it on credit card. I know the guy. I know, and he's responsible, but he didn't have it in the emergency fund yet. But I'm just saying to you, if you can begin to think about these things, so give one quick benefit of the Dave Ramsey course, and I want to give these guys their 5, that you think, even if guys have their house in order, that you would put a plug in for that course if guys want to be blessed.
Yeah, I tell you, the thing is, you could read books, we all have that, right? You need to read books to get knowledge. But what the course gives you is the camaraderie of other people
Yeah.
you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Right? And that's priceless. Right? The people that you become friends with through those courses like that just really can guide you, and they hold you accountable. Because it really is that idea, is that you got to help each other through the process. John Tompkins and Aaron Brewer both were instructors when I first started going through the classes, so I definitely follow in their steps, and amazing.
And you're not $1 million in debt right now, right?
No.
We're in a good place, much better place.
Yes.
Yes. See, this works, and this, it takes a little time in the right way. So here's the thing. I don't know what the Lord's saying to you, but here's what I know. You're going to, at some point, God has given each one of us some money. It's just got numbers on it. There's part of my allowance left. I got $21 left for the month. February. And I'm gonna probably end the month with money left. Now, and I am going to Starbucks tomorrow morning for sure. I know that. But here's my point. There's just numbers. But you know what? It's not my money. You have these. It's not how many, it's what you do with it over time. Right? A friend of mine works for Ron Blue, gave a little chart out there. You can take one, I hope you do, about if you put certain amounts away over a certain period of time, how much you'll actually have at 65 years old. It's really cool. God gives us what we need. It isn't measuring mine against him or against somebody else, it's pointless. It's what am I going to do with what God's entrusted to me against my responsibilities that I have. And then I need to actually track where I'm spending it so I can take dominion of it. But I want to learn that I'm not going to cheat God. I'm going to give. It's one of the greatest things in the world. It was so fun handing this young man an envelope with money. He goes, what's this? I go, it's for you. From who? Doesn't really matter, does it? And then when you learn to save a little, you can change these percentages. You don't have to start here. Just move in these directions. And sometimes you realize, I don't need 80% to live. I only need 60. Well, then start giving 30. Give 20 and save 20. Talk to the Lord about it. But if you don't do this, it's amazing how this can run your life. It's paper. And you won't be content. Because you'll feel like somebody's doing something to you instead of you having a chance to be proactive with what God's given to you, which is huge. All right? Here's what I want to do. I want to give you guys 5 minutes. We're going to play some music. And you just ask the Lord, what's one thing? One thing. Thank you. Jasper. One thing that maybe you feel you could do to just take seriously this gift of dominion in this area of tangible realities that God's given to you. You might say, you know what? James, you can start playing that real soft. Man, I'm going to start tracking my money this week and just get a flavor for this. I'm going to sit down and make a budget. I don't even have a budget. I don't even know what one looks like. Well, this week I'm going to talk to somebody about what a budget looks like. I'm going to talk to Jasper and figure out, does Dave Ramsey have a budget sheet I could look at? Or maybe I'm going to redo the budget I have. I just want to take seriously my stuff. Or maybe I got some debt. I'm going to look at my budget and make a plan how to get rid of my lowest debt by a certain time and not accumulate any more, and then take that and let it snowball to the next one until I'm literally free. Can you imagine? There's some people paying $500, $600, $700 a month in debt payments. Can you imagine having that extra cash every month? That's a massive amount of money. So let's just, maybe you're at a point where it's like, man, you got this sealed, signed, and delivered. You're good to go. I'd say, who are you going to teach? I think I'll give you an application. It's like, I'm going to pray for one person that I can help then with this. Because God helped me. That would be a gift. But let's just take some time in quiet, maybe to even just thank the Lord that we're all going to a place tonight with a roof over our head. Lord, you created us to be free. And I confess at times I've made decisions that I've been my own worst enemy. Sometimes because I didn't know. And other times because I just chose to go get what I wanted. Sometimes prematurely, Lord. It wasn't I couldn't have it. I just did it foolishly. Lord, thank you. You are so kind that none of us is here without clothes on our back, without food in our stomach. And so we say thank you. Lord, we want to be men who are content. But Lord, we also want to be responsible, and we want to be generous as you are. Lord, I thank you for this scripture that says, remember this, that whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously or bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each man should give what he has decided to give in his heart, not reluctantly, and certainly not under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things and in all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Lord, the scriptures tell us we brought nothing into the world, and we'll take nothing out. So would you help us to be good stewards of your stuff in between? We'd like to do that for your name's sake. And all God's brothers said, amen. Amen. Well, I hope you wrote something down. And I hope you think about this. You can look up verses in Scripture, but I hope we just kind of got you going. And again, we need to break the room down. But before we do, I just want to remind you, cards, we have them out there if you need them, or on your table. And Rockbridge, come on. You know you want to go. It's going to be great. And and next week we'll be together. We're going to have a great time. Next week, just to give you a little preview, we're going to review a little bit from each week. And then I'm going to give you a little working session to begin practicing something somebody taught me. I'm going to go over it with you. And then I'm going to literally give you about 20, 25 minutes to work on it. It's going to really be fun. So come ready to engage, okay? So let's do our verse, and we'll get after it, all right? Here we go. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent, think about such things. Amen. So for next week, our final week, week 8 of our session, I'd love for you just to consider, where have you come from in our time? What have you learned the most? And what have you learned the most about? Because next week we're going to review every week, and then I'm going to give you about 25 to 30 minutes to begin to develop a working document that you can have on every area of your life, and how you can learn over time to take little steps that can lead to a big difference in each of these areas. I think this is a document that you'll highly value, particularly as you begin to practice it and work on it a couple times a year.